Today we're continuing our conversation about how to create an evangelistic culture in your church. Last time we went through the first 3 points, and now we'll go through points 4, 5, and 6. And again, all these things are things you could possibly do. You may not be able to do all of them, but think about what would work in your culture. Number 4 is this, that people need to have a face in their heads. A whole lot of us agree with the idea that we should be evangelistic. We should share our faith, but it's just a general agreement idea. Yeah, you're right, we should. Until they get a face of someone in their heads. They actually recognize there's a neighbor, a coworker, a relative, a friend, a classmate, someone they see in the stores all the time, maybe the person at the cash register at the grocery store, that they realize that God has placed that person intentionally in their lives. And so you have to get them to have a face in their heads. And so here's what I would suggest to you. First of all, most people have one of these things. It's called a cell phone. And you just say, hey, do me a favor, go back through your texts over the last few weeks, and we just look through and ask yourself, do they know Jesus? Do they have a church home? And if they don't have a church home and don't know Christ, or either one, could it be possible that God wants you to invite them to join you for church? Or you could have them think it through their neighborhood. It could be, think about the 3 neighbors to the right, the 3 neighbors to the left, the 3 neighbors across the street. And do they know Jesus? Do you know where they are spiritually? And ask those kind of questions. Again, how about your coworkers or your classmates? I used to do this with students. I would say, hey, I want you to think about your math class and the 8 students that are around you, because no one ever sits in the front row, the 8 students around you, and I want you to think, do you know where they are spiritually? Do you know if they have a church home? Have you ever invited them to church? Put a face in their minds, a face in their heads, and then they'll be able to say, okay, well, God's put this person in my path. You may even want to take it even farther and go to the place where you say, okay, I would like you to write down the names of 3 people and then actually hand that in, and in a sense, make it an offering to God of the church. You could have bookmarks where they write 3 names on each one. They're all the same 3 names. They keep one bookmark for themselves to pray it through, and they put one on the offering, saying on the altar, saying, hey, God, I'm trusting you for these people. And the staff and the leadership pray through those names. You need to have a face in their heads. Next, they need to have a plan in their minds. A whole lot of people say, yeah, I want to share my faith, but I don't know how to do it. And a lot of times we think that those street evangelists are the most effective evangelists, and they're the bravest and the boldest and the most courageous, but actually that's not the way it is. It's most brave and bold and courageous when you're talking to your neighbor, your coworker, your relative, your friend, your classmate, because there's something at stake here. There's a relationship on the line, and so you have to be careful. I always use the terms, the farming terms of cultivate, plant, and reap when I think about these things. You want to cultivate the relationship first, and then plant the seed of Christ, and at the right time, as God leads you to the place of decision, that you reap a response from that person. And so, for example, with your neighbors, I mentioned earlier, think about it for a minute. Think about the 9 neighbors around you, 3 on the right, 3 on the left, and 3 across the street. Number 1, do you know their names? Do you know their names? And if you don't, then you're going to start cultivating relationship. You're going to go across the street and, hi, my name is Scott, and I'm your neighbor, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name. What is your name? Second, maybe it's, hey, have they ever been to your house? If they've never been to your house, then you still are in the cultivating stage. If you haven't been in their home, it's still in the cultivating stage. And so maybe you invite them over or do something together as a couples or as groups or as individuals, but you come together cultivating relationship. And do they know you're a Christian? Do you know where they are spiritually? And maybe have, as part of the planting of the seed, share something about your life, about the fact that you go to church, about the fact that maybe it's you pray at dinner, something that help you plant the seed of Christ in their lives. I know my wife's really good about this. She actually simply talks about her Bible studies that she's studying with friends. When people ask, hey, what was that group that came over to your house the other day? Oh, we have a Bible study there. We're doing this. And we just have a conversation. She acts like Christ is a normal part of her life, which he is. Most of us shy away from that, but you don't have to if you've already cultivated relationship. And then finally, in due time, you'll reap a response when God gives you the sense that it's time to ask them, what are you going to do with this news about Jesus Christ? And how are you going to respond to either personally or there at the church? And then finally in this session, words in their mouths. People don't know what to say, and maybe you could give them a few ways to enter into conversation about Jesus. I remember one time as a young man, I was playing basketball in a gym, And after the basketball game was over, I turned to another guy and I just turned to him and said, hey, can I tell you about the most important thing in my life? We had been playing basketball together for a number of months, and to my surprise, he actually knew what I was going to talk about. He says, I know, I should be going to church. When can I come to your church? And I just was surprised by it, but I had cultivated, planted, and now I was reaping a response. Hey, when can I tell you about the most important thing in my life? Or maybe it's one of those other questions you may ask. Hey, if you were to die tonight and stand before God, why would He let you into heaven? That would be a reap response kind of question. But you need to be careful to make sure that you're already there. What I often do is simply say, listen, people, just invite them to church and let the church be a co-witness with you in your faith. And say, hey, would you like to go to church with me? It's as simple as that. You don't have to have a lot of specialties. You don't have to be a salesperson. You just need to be a witness. Hey, listen, I've learned so much at this church. God's really changed me, and I feel like I'm becoming the person He wants me to be. Would you like to join me? It's simple things. Give them words in their mouths. These 3 steps are hugely instrumental in helping people move forward in the evangelistic culture of their church. This has been a Converge Whiteboard Leadership Moment. To learn more about Converge or to join us, check out converge.org.